You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. Welcome back, everybody. Young Turks, Jen Canada with you guys. Vote, okay? And I've got the 8 states for you: Alabama, California, Iowa, Mississippi, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, South Dakota. They're all voting on next Tuesday, June 5th. We're gonna have a huge show for you guys right after the Young Turks on that day. Don't miss it. But enormously relevant states with big Just Democrats there: New Jersey, Iowa, California, and some irrelevant states like Mississippi and Alabama. Just kidding.
You elitist.
I can't believe it.
You can't say negative things about those states. They can really trash talk California all they want, though.
Yeah. They're Massachusetts, San Francisco. All right, anyways. All right.
And they all come move over here.
JR, what do you got?
Oh, 2 quick things. Chris Durand talking about the breaking news on Harvey Weinstein. Right. I didn't invent armed robbery, but if I went in and shot up a bodega, is gonna go to jail for a decade or more. Mm-hmm. Why does this buffoon lawyer and his idiot Hollywood client think that even passes as a defense? And number 2, from Dangos, talking about the Russian reporter. He's not dead yet.
That pun is nearly perfect. It works on several different levels. Oh no, T-shirt. You can even get this one. ShopTYT.com. Okay,
Wait, but
yes.
are you going to give him a T-shirt? Or
no, you could just go to ShopTYT.com and buy one. I'm kidding. I'm giving him one. Okay, not JR. I'm giving the Dangos free T-shirt. Okay, but the rest of you, ShopTYT.com.
Dangos, you get it if the check's in the mail. And 2 member shout-outs for today: Alex Huang and Issa Haddad.
All right.
All right, excellent. So everybody remember, post games for the members, and you get all the content you want, anytime you want, commercial free, okay? And thank you for making the show possible. tyt.com/join. Get the app. It's the easiest, best way to watch the show. tyt.com/app. What's next?
All right. Recently, Donald Trump was rallying for candidate Marsha Blackburn. This was in Nashville. And during the rally, he specifically brought up the issue of an FBI informant infiltrating his 2016 presidential campaign. Just to remind you guys and give you context into that FBI infiltrator, it all occurred after a few members of Trump's campaign had publicly spoken about their ties to Russia. George Papadopoulos is a primary example. He apparently spoke to an official from Australia about how he was in communication with the Russians. And so that tipped off the FBI, and they decided to hire a Republican informant, again, a Republican informant, to see if those allegations of communication with Russians were true. Now, with that said, here is Trump losing his mind over it again during this rally for Marsha Blackburn. Take a look.
They had people infiltrating our campaign. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Okay, so I give you that lead-in to talk about Trey Gowdy. He is the Republican representative from South Carolina who was recently on CBS this morning to discuss this very issue. And guess what Gowdy did? He went against what Trump's saying, went against the Trump narrative. Watch.
Oh.
You said, having looked at this, you said, I am even more convinced that the FBI did exactly what Americans would want them to do when they got the information they did. Why did you say that? How can you be so sure?
Well, when the FBI comes into contact with information about what a foreign government may be doing in our election cycle, I think they have an obligation to run it out. I think the FBI, if they were at the table this morning, they would tell you Russia was the target and Russia's intentions toward our country were the target. The fact that 2 people who were loosely connected with the Trump campaign may have been involved doesn't diminish the fact that Russia was the target and not the campaign.
Yeah. So first of all, I love the way that Trump goes to a rally. He's like, "Can you believe the FBI was investigating me?" Well, that normally you should not really brag about that. And the crowd's like, "Oh yeah, I can't believe the FBI was looking into you for breaking the law." What?
Okay, so wait, okay. Actually, it's a smart strategy by Trump because it riles the Republican base up. They think that there's a witch hunt. They think that there's an attack against Trump because people just don't like him. But in reality, when it came to this FBI informant, Trump himself was not the one being investigated. It was the knuckleheads in his campaign that kept talking about how they were communicating with Russians. That's the reason why, and those were the people who were being investigated.
In fact, Gowdy referred to that and said, if you remember, Trump at one point said, if there were people that were talking to the Russians or anyone else and doing something wrong in my campaign, I would want the FBI to look into it to prove that I wasn't involved. So what happened to that? Well, it turns out Trump thinks, well, maybe I was involved and I don't want you to look into it. So at another time, Trump positively tweeted about something Gowdy had said just over the last 24 hours. See, that's why I tell you, there's no strategy. He's just not that bright. I know that Trey Gowdy is not on Trump's side. Gowdy is deep right-winger. He's the one who led all the nonsense Benghazi investigation after Benghazi investigation. But he's now retiring, and so that frees him up a little bit to be just 10% more sane than the average Republican bear, right? So, and he's like, well, the FBI is doing their job. Somebody told them, hey, somebody in the Trump campaign, and no matter what the campaign is illegally talking to foreign countries. And Gowdy's literally saying, what do you want them to do? What would you want the FBI to do?
And Trump, again, said what he wanted them to do. If anyone is in talks with the Russians in my campaign, they should be investigated. And that's exactly what happened. And now Trump is making it seem as though he was the one being targeted for political reasons, and that's not the case. By the way, the narrative that Trump keeps laying out to rile up his base includes words like FBI spy. And that is apparently an issue as well, because this individual was not an FBI spy. He was an informant. He was an investigator. You can say he was an infiltrator, but to say that he's a spy is problematic, and Gowdy touches on that in the next clip.
Let me ask you some specific questions. Was there a spy?
That is not a term I've ever used in the criminal justice system. Undercover, informant, confidential informant, those are all words I'm familiar with. I've never heard the term spy used.
So when the president says Spygate, there was no spy inserted into the campaign. Have you seen any evidence of that?
I have not. That's an espionage term. That's not a law enforcement term.
You believe the FBI acted properly in this matter?
Based on what I have seen, I don't know what the FBI could have done or should have done other than run out a lead that someone loosely connected with the campaign was making assertions about Russia. I would think you would want the FBI to find out whether or not there was any validity to what those people were saying.
Now, again, that is not a Democratic congressman. That is a Republican congressman who's a party loyalist and deeply right-wing from South Carolina. But he's like, he worked in law enforcement. He's like, what do you want him to do? They got a report of a crime. You want him to not investigate it? And why don't you want them to investigate it? Which is a really interesting question. And spies are when one country spies in on another country. So to use it within the same country and in a situation where there's a law enforcement matter makes no sense on two different grounds. And so Gowdy there is trying to explain, no, it is an informant, and you use informants in law enforcement all the time. You might use it in a gang situation, a bomb situation, racketeering, etc. And here there were allegations that a foreign country is trying to influence a campaign, which would be illegal, so you get an informant. It's like law enforcement 101. It's not bringing in some, spy from Sweden and like dun 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 dun. Nobody's hanging from the ceiling. Okay, there's no Tom Cruise, right? It's just regular law enforcement.
Okay, that's a really funny image that I just had in my head. But yeah, and one other thing that really stood out to me about this interview is something that you touched on earlier, Cenk. So Gowdy will not be seeking re-election. He is retiring, and as soon as Republican politicians have that tiny taste of freedom, they do speak out against Trump. And maybe it's not as aggressively as some of us would hope, but still, I mean, he is contradicting what Trump is saying. He's challenging what Trump is saying in regard to this FBI informant.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
I am curious to see how Republicans who are currently in office and who plan on remaining in office will behave as soon as Trump is bad for their poll numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And how
That's
quickly they'll turn on him, because we all know what they genuinely think about him.
Look, I don't have to tell you guys, politicians are
dirty.
Yes, it's one way of putting it, right? Mm-hmm. So you can literally see them reacting to Trump's poll numbers by how much they're criticizing him. For the Republicans, Democrats criticize him no matter what, right? But for the Republicans, now Trump's poll numbers are up a little bit. So the ones that are not retiring are like, what do you mean? Of course, maybe there could be spies all over the government. The deep state could be fixing the midterm elections. Could be, right? But meanwhile, when his numbers sink, they're like, well, I wouldn't, say it that way, and and et cetera. So as we get closer to the elections, it really depends on Trump's poll numbers, because politicians are not people that are very courageous. And they're on TV, they're treated as leaders, but they're not. They're 99 out of 100 times they're followers. So they're gonna follow the money most of the time, they're gonna follow power, and they're gonna follow the poll numbers. So we're gonna see what the reaction is based on that. For a guy like Gowdy on his way out, he's like, no, I'm not gonna agree to an insane conspiracy about how the FBI has spies, and then the latest thing Trump said is that they're gonna fix the midterm elections against the Republicans. Anyone who believes that has totally lost their minds or is lying on purpose for political reasons. And he just doesn't have as much of a reason to anymore.
Exactly, and if you're lying about how there could potentially be meddling in the midterm elections to screw over Republicans just so you can help your poll numbers, you're a bad person, because that could lead to a dangerous result, a violent result. People who see that, maybe in some seats Democrats won over Republicans, people think that there was meddling involved there. Like, it's dangerous. And so if you're a politician who's playing into that ridiculous narrative because it's helping your poll numbers, just understand what you're doing to the future of the country.
No, they know it. They know that they're undermining our form of government and our democracy, but that's why it drives me crazy when TV kisses the ass of these politicians. Oh, the honorable gentlemen, they're having fine debates about the issues of the day, and this is what they believe. They don't believe anything. They believe in getting reelected and finding out what their donors want and serving it. They are not honorable people. Generally speaking, they care only about themselves. There's good reason why the country despises politicians. They're polling sometimes as low as 7%. The British government, when we did a revolution against them, had 1/3 of the colonies supporting them. Congress is in way worse shape. The only people who support congressmen today are the people on TV. They're in power together. So, and you could tell as a congressman is leaving, finally a little bit of honesty, which gives you a sense of the mountain of dishonesty that normally these politicians live in, but your TV hosts never point out.
So let's move on to another portion of this Trey Gowdy discussion that has a lot more to do with Jeff Sessions, okay? Donald Trump has been furious with Jeff Sessions, and he has really had a difficult time holding back from criticizing Sessions over the fact that he recused himself in this whole Russia investigation. In Trump's mind, Jeff Sessions should be the one who is fighting for Trump and ensuring that this Russia investigation does not continue. Now, Trey Gowdy was asked about this during his interview on CBS this morning. He's the Republican representative from South Carolina, and here is what he had to say in regard to Jeff Sessions recusing himself.
Well, I think what the president is doing is expressing frustration that Attorney General Sessions should have shared these reasons for recusal before he took the job, not afterward. If I were the president and I picked someone to be the country's chief law enforcement officer, and they told me later, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be able to participate in the most important case in the office, I would be frustrated too. That's how I read that, is Senator Sessions, why didn't you tell me this before I picked you? There are lots of really good lawyers in the country. He could have picked someone else.
Now remember, in the middle of this interview, Trey Gowdy contradicted Trump quite a bit when it came to the FBI informant that investigated Trump's campaign having some ties with Russians during the election. And it didn't matter because Trump liked that one small snippet of the interview and used it to his advantage on social media. Let's go to graphic 14. In comments later quoted by Trump, Gowdy said Trump was merely, quote, expressing frustration that Attorney General Sessions should have shared these reasons for recusal before he took the job, not afterwards. And the tweet specifically said, there are lots of really good lawyers in the country. He could have picked somebody else. Again, Trump wrote that quoting Gowdy.
But see, that's why Trump's such a knucklehead. Gowdy is saying that the FBI did not put a spy into your campaign, and that most of what you're saying is not true. But he's not even smart enough to know that. And this is about you, about the most important, the thing that you care most about, the thing that might get you prosecuted. But he's like, I don't know. Gowdy said one positive thing. I like Gowdy. Let's retweet Gowdy. Gowdy's good. Gowdy's good. We like Gowdy.
Yeah.
Well, then everybody's going to quote the other things that Gowdy said. Oh, I didn't think about that. Because the thoughts jump from here to here, and there's only 2 brain cells.
Okay.
And they're playing boom, 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 boom. What's that game? Bong, pong.
Listen, whether or not Jeff Sessions recused himself doesn't even really matter. First of all, Jeff Sessions is not your personal attorney, period. The Attorney General is not your personal attorney, period. He needs to understand how the government works. But more importantly, you got to appoint the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. You got to appoint that person. You appointed him. You did it, okay? Not some random person. Comey didn't do it. I don't know, Hillary Clinton didn't do it. We didn't do it. You appointed Rod Rosenstein. You got to appoint the Deputy Attorney General. It doesn't matter if Jeff Sessions recused himself. It's amazing. He just wants everyone to be loyal and do exactly what he wants at any given moment. If you go against him at all, even if you haven't gone against him, but he perceives it that way, he will tear you apart on social media as you're working in his cabinet.
So, I mean, attacking your own attorney general, unprecedented. Firing someone in your administration, not unprecedented. It happens very, very rarely, but it does happen from time to time. Firing your own attorney general almost never happens, right? Now, he hasn't fired him yet. But to constantly say, oh, my attorney general, he did such a bad job, he made such a bad decision. If Obama had done that, everyone would have lost their minds. It would have been the most unbelievable thing that happened.
No, Obama would have already been impeached,
Yeah,
okay? Because Republicans would have forced that kind of vote to happen in Congress. Democrats would have conceded. They would have bowed and conceded.
It's a distraction. It's a distraction.
Yeah.
Let's impeach him already.
He would have been gone already. Let's just keep it real. One other thing, Trump also wrote the following. If he would have recused himself before the job, I would have said, thanks, Jeff, but I'm not going to take you. It's extremely unfair. And that's a mild word to the president.
No, but that's admitting obstruction of justice in public, saying the attorney, like in case you don't know it, and if you're a Republican watching and you're a Trump supporter, you're incredibly ignorant, so let me fill you in. The attorney general is not the president's lawyer. The Attorney General is the top law enforcement official for the whole country, supposed to represent us and our laws. And that's what he swore to do, and to protect our Constitution and our laws. Not to protect any one person, including the president. So when Trump says, well, why didn't he just protect me legally? Well, he's saying, why didn't he just not do his job? And instead of enforcing the laws, make sure that the laws are not enforced against me. It's an amazing admission. Who would say that guy shouldn't allow any prosecutor to look into what I did? It's an obvious admission that you broke the law and that you want the Attorney General to break the law to protect you.
Also,
but he just says it in public because he's too stupid to know that you shouldn't say that in public. You're admitting obstruction of justice.
And also, just keep in mind, the very beginning of this whole debacle did not include, a specific investigation into Trump's conduct, right? There was an investigation into the campaign's conduct, possible Russian meddling, and then things really started to ramp up after he had asked Comey to look out for him, right? I mean, that's when things started to get really bad for Trump. The reason why I'm saying this is because Trump is the person who has really amplified the focus and attention that's directed at him, including obstruction of justice. So he needs to stop. He needs people around him. I know it's impossible. They need to get him to stop because he is his own worst enemy when it comes to this issue.
But it's become mind-bending because if you're a prosecutor looking at obstruction of justice and there's a guy you find out in a secret email or a memo said,
at TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Man, I wish the Attorney General had told me that he was going to recuse himself. Otherwise, I wouldn't have appointed him because I wanted him to protect me. You'd say, aha, smoking gun, got you. Did you guys see this memo? But the guy says it in public, so you're like, wait, I don't. And then half the country defends him. And it's like saying, well, I mean, I murdered someone. I murdered him. And so you're like, wait, but I was investigating the murder and you just admitted it. So I'm going to charge you with murder, but you already admitted it. And half the country goes, bravo, bravo, way to murder that person. And if someone investigates you for murdering them, deep state, spies.
It works. What he's doing works with his base, and it'll continue to work. People believe that this is a witch hunt. There's already been polling into this. The majority of Americans, I'm not just talking about Republicans, majority of Americans believe that this whole Mueller investigation hasn't found any wrongdoing.
Okay, I'm gonna say it one more time because apparently, again, Trump voters just don't understand the law at all. If you try to block a valid law enforcement investigation of yourself, that is the definition of obstruction of justice. If you did it, you would go to jail for a long, long time. You can talk about spies and deep state all you like, but if you said to a prosecutor, don't prosecute me, I'll give you money. You're going away for decades, right? Don't prosecute me, otherwise I'll take your job away. You'd go away for decades, right? That's what he's doing in public. Yeah. Amazing. And then you got a bunch of idiots in red hats going, yeah, that's right, you should break the law. Yeah, Blue Lives Matter, the law sucks. Don't do the law. Yeah, if somebody tries to enforce the law, fire them. Enjoy your total ignorance, you MAGA clown of clowns.
Strong. Okay, we got to take another break. When we come back, Governor Eric Greitens announces his resignation. It's amazing.
Okay, so the governor is involved in tying folks up. Okay,
yeah.
So it's dirty. We're going to talk about that. But before we go, it should be noted for the record that in the middle of me calling Trump stupid and all of his voters ignorant, which is 1,000% true, I did confuse pong with bong, which then gets you to wonder what's going on today. Kidding around. Okay, shoptyt.com. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks. Lots of tweets and YouTube super chats here, but Progressive Angry and Pregnant said, which are awesome. I know a lot of people on Ambien. Every one of them has had a crazy side effect. So that's just one opinion,
yeah.
Okay?
By the way, I want to respond to something because I think people are really misinterpreting what I was trying to say during that Roseanne story. I am not making excuses for what she has tweeted. As I said in that, story, and I'll repeat it again, she has a long history of tweeting incredibly offensive things. So no, I am not excusing anything. However, I am not okay with people minimizing the potential side effects of Ambien. You're right, there's no proof that she was taking Ambien, and I said that during that story. But nonetheless, I don't like this, people just love that reaction or that response from the pharmaceutical company that manufactures Ambien. And it's just, don't give them,
Yeah. Well, almost everybody on TV that's falling over themselves to say how great a response that was as advertising from pharmaceutical companies.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, anyways, look, but I got, Roseanne Barr called me an insane anti-Semite. I got no love for her, right? We're just trying to be fair and honest here, right? Mm-hmm. All right, speaking of which, Peter Hamby writes in on YouTube Super Chat. She's already gone from TV. Now about Roseanne get barred, get it, from Facebook and Twitter. She was ambient in her racism, okay? And Andrew Williams, another one about Ambien, says, I've taken 10 milligrams Ambien to party before, and in hindsight, I feel like I was literally another person. All my friends said they didn't recognize me and said, quote, your morals disappeared.
Wow.
So look, again, it's just one person's perspective, but it is interesting. And then finally, Game Over on the Sessions story made a great point. Sessions took office in February of 2017. Trump fired Comey in May of 2017. Mueller was appointed after that. The timeline just doesn't add up on how Sessions was supposed to know before he got the job that the dotard would fire Comey, dumb to his orange core. And it's, thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to bring that up and I just didn't get a chance to in the Gowdy story. Gowdy's defense of Trump, his limited defense of Trump, doesn't make any sense. How could Sessions have told him, hey, by the way, in case you broke the law and cooperated with the Russians, and later you try to cover that up by firing the FBI director, I promise I won't recuse myself. How is that a conversation that could have happened?
If I remember the timeline correctly, Sessions recused himself after the whole Mike Flynn thing happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true too.
Right. So,
but either way, he didn't recuse himself before he became Attorney General. He recused himself after an event happened.
You're right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, all right. We got a lot more. Let's go.
All right. Donald Trump has reacted to the whole Roseanne Barr story and how her show has gotten canceled. He says the following, graphic 30, Bob Iger of ABC called Valerie Jarrett to let her know that ABC does not tolerate comments like those made by Roseanne Barr. Gee, he never called President Donald J. Trump to apologize for the horrible statements made and said about me on ABC. Maybe I just didn't get the call.
All right, so this is typical Trump. First of all,
I like that he used his middle initial.
I know. Can you imagine if I was like,
Anahit M. Kasparian.
Yes, and I can't believe what you've said about Cenk K. Uygur. What a weirdo. So let's note a couple of things for the record. One, he did not tweet about the things that Roseanne Barr actually said. Calling Valerie Jarrett an ape, not an issue, not worth his time, not bothering to tweet about that. Number two, he says Iger is friends with Jarrett. That part is true. okay? And I think that did play a big part in this. Number 3, he thinks, well, insulting anyone gets you fired from TV, apparently. No, that's not how it works. She wasn't fired for insulting Valerie Jarrett. She was fired for saying racist things about black people. And you can't be racist against orange people. When people say things about you, it isn't because you're orange, it's because you're Donald J. Trump. And you get to criticize, first of all, anyone in the country, let alone the president of the United States, who's a politician. So you're conflating two things. You might think he's doing it on purpose to trick his followers. No, I think he doesn't know the difference. Like, it didn't occur to him, hey, that's racist, that's about a whole group of people, and this is just about me, and I'm a politician. No, he just thought, not fair, not fair. You're fired for criticizing Valerie, not for me, right? Because he's a child.
If he had unmitigated power, it would be a criminal offense to say anything negative about him.
No question about it. But here's my favorite part of the story. Sarah Huckabee Sanders on Tuesday, before Donald Trump tweeted, said, that's not what the president's looking at when asked about this issue. That's not what he's spending his time on. Oops. And I think that we have a lot bigger things going on in the country right now. Oops. Certainly that the president is spending his time when it comes to policy. Oops.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You don't know Trump? You don't know that he's going to be obsessed about a drama around celebrities and TV? And that he is invariably going to tweet about it? Sarah Huckabee Sanders, this might be the largest mistake you ever made.
Oh, please. No, and no one cares. No one cares. She can go up there and say whatever she wants. If you criticize her, you're a terrible person.
And by the way, against women.
Yeah.
So, but somebody should just play her comments back to her and go, do you now agree, given that the president did spend his time on that issue rather than policy, that the president thinks that it's more important? You said it wasn't. You said he wouldn't spend his time on it because it's not as important as policy. Do you now agree, obviously, the president thinks it's more important than policy issues like North Korea or other massive issues that he's got to concern himself with? Do you agree that the president is a child and when he sees something shiny on TV, he can't help but tweet about it? Come on, I can't believe she'd make that mistake. Oh, the president would never stoop to talking about Roseanne Barr. Have you met the president?
All right, moving on to non-Roseanne Barr related stories. In January, a woman who voted for Donald Trump had her husband deported. Now, she didn't report her husband, but ICE officials did deport him, even though he came into the country as a minor and had never broken any laws, was a productive member of society. Cindy Garcia was very upset when her husband, Jorge, was deported. And CNN wanted to, keep in touch with her, get a little update from her, and see how she's currently feeling about the whole situation. Is she upset at the president that she voted for and supported? Take a look.
We were down in Mexico for 2.5 months in April, and we were glad that we were able to go and see him.
And how's he doing?
He lost 30 pounds. He looks different than what he did living here in the U.S. The Mexico life has taken a toll on him.
So he's been in Mexico since January. As she mentions, he has lost weight. It's been very difficult for him. But what I found interesting was what you're about to see, her reaction to the president himself and whether or not she has turned her back on him.
Listen, a lot of people would be furious about what the government has done, maybe express their ire toward the president. But I read that you're not mad at the government. You understand the laws. Can you explain that to me a little bit?
Yes, I am not upset at our government due to the fact that I am a U.S. citizen and that our laws come first. Our laws are just broken and need to be fixed. But I can't be mad at Trump for doing his job because that is his job to protect us as U.S. citizens from criminals. The only thing is my husband was not a criminal, and those are the laws that need to be fixed because they're broken for the people that are here. We're brought as children, doing the right thing, and have never committed a crime. We need to fix a pathway to citizenship for them. For the criminals that have come here illegally, they need to go back.
Okay.
Anna, are you sure that she didn't report her own husband?
I don't know, but okay. First, let's get an important point out of the way. I don't know why CNN thought it would be a good idea to cover that woman's face with a Roseanne graphic. Why would they do that? That was ridiculous.
No, they become a self-parody. Eventually, the whole screen is going to be covered by all other graphics. You're not going to be able to see what's on screen.
No, if you want that graphic, fine, but don't cover a quarter of her face with it. Okay, now let's move on to the actual substance of the story. Trump can do anything to his supporters. They will still support him. They will somehow do whatever mental gymnastics are necessary to continue supporting him. Trump is the person who took those protections away from Dreamers. He's the person who took those protections away from Dreamers. So yes, I agree with her that there needs to be action on a congressional level in regard to our immigration policy. But also listen to her wording, the rhetoric there when it comes to everyone else who came into the country. Immigrants who are criminals who came into the country illegally. She paints this picture that I keep seeing on the right about immigrants coming in, they're all criminals, as if they weren't minors, if they didn't come in as minors and they were criminals, they need to all be deported. They're not all criminals. A lot of them came here because they desperately needed opportunities or they're trying to flee violence in their own countries, and they've been productive members of society. We've reported about the taxes that they do pay, whether it's sales taxes, Social Security taxes, which they never get to reap the benefits of. And they're not criminals. Just simply crossing the border, I get it, you're breaking the law doing that. But they're not all MS-13 gang members because they came into the country illegally. A lot of them came in the country looking for better opportunities for themselves and their family.
By the way, have you ever crossed the street when it wasn't a green light and a walk sign? Because if you did, you're a criminal. That is technically breaking the law. So you can go around and go, well, they broke the law, they broke the law. Okay, I sure hope you've never stepped onto the street when it wasn't a green light, because you're a criminal. You're a criminal. You're like MS-13. We got to get you out of the country until we figure out what the hell's going on. Anyway, so I've, of course, now lost all sympathy for her. And so the propaganda works so well that she's almost thanking the president for deporting her own husband. Now, she says, well, look, he wasn't a criminal. But first of all, Trump said he was going to deport people, and he called most immigrants criminals and rapists. But in the conservative mind, if it's not me, it doesn't matter. That's other people. Even if they're of my own race, ethnicity, it doesn't matter. If they're in the same exact situation my husband is in, it doesn't matter. It's not me. I don't give a damn about him. Wait a minute. Oh, no, it happened to me, right? And even then, she's like, but I don't get it. He's not a criminal. We have to fix this law. But we had it fixed. Obama said that the Dreamers could stay, that your husband could stay. And then Trump
unilaterally
changed it. And so he's the one who decided to kick out your husband. But she's like, no, the laws are broken, but Trump is doing the right thing. He has to get them out of the country. The criminals, I have been told they are criminals, but does not compute. My husband is not criminal, but I love Trump. All right, then go marry Trump.
Yeah, it's depressing because it doesn't matter how much his policies negatively impact members of his base, they will continue supporting him no matter what. And what he said while he was campaigning for president was accurate. He could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and people will still support him. Anyway, we got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.